Welcome to today's guest, rising star of the country music scene, Caitlin Mae. How are you, Caitlin?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
That's our pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Definitely, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It's been a while since we've done like, country music stuff on the page and on the show, so makes a nice change.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm honored.
Right, so I suppose we better start it from the top, really. Start from the beginning. Tell us how you got started.
So, I've always had a huge passion for music. And I guess when you're really young and you're growing up and all your friends want to be pop stars and rock stars and you want to be a singer too, that's just something that kids dream. And then as I got older, and of course, so did all my peers, they started to change drastically in what they wanted to do with their futures. And I never changed my mind. I knew music was my path from a very young age, and suddenly all my friends wanted to be doctors and vets and scientists, and I was like, I still want to, give music my best shot. And fast forward to now, I'm 21. I just turned 21. I'm glad that I never veered off this path. And my passion for country music in particular came from being exposed to the USA and just the difference in culture from a very young age. I was 2 years old when my parents bought a holiday home in Florida, and what you hear on the radio and when you go to the mall or you go shopping is totally different to what you hear in the UK and the top 40. It's all pop. And I think having the best of both worlds really helped me probably develop my sound. And I'm really grateful that that was a part of my story.
Because you aren't originally from sort of America, as you've sort of made mention to. Where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up in South Wales in the UK, but we would travel to Florida typically once a year, and our tradition was to spend Christmas there. My favorite times were when we could be there for a whole month because in my head I could pretend that I lived there and that I was never going to leave. And it was just my happy place. I actually wrote a song called Sunshine State, and it's unreleased right now, but it was about how I had no bad memories and nothing negative attached to my time there, and how sometimes you want to leave a place because of the bad memories. And so, I had some negative experiences back in growing up in South Wales, and I had a bad experience in high school with bullying and a pretty turbulent relationship with my older sister. And I think the seeds that you plant in the place that you grow up can really affect how you feel about that place. But Florida really was the sunshine state in all aspects to me.
Right, okay. So you made a little bit of a mention there briefly about how when you got into country music, it was through like what your parents or your family was playing. What sort of names were being played around the house on the stereo or the CD or whatever platform you were using at the time?
So my parents definitely had a wide array of musical tastes. But actually the person who really brought country music into the fold was me. So
Oh, okay.
we would be exposed to country music just from what we heard on the radio. And at the time I didn't even know to call it country music, because it was definitely more of the modern subgenre. But it was just what we were exposed to when we would visit Florida and, our neighbors and things out there. But I just fell in love with it. And I think my parents realized how much they loved it and also loved watching me kind of explore and find who I was. And my dad was actually more into rock when he was growing up. And he said that he loves kind of Carrie Underwood because I fell in love with her and she's country rock. She brings the edge to country. And my dad said it's nice to be able to listen to rock that isn't going to blow your head off now that he's older. He just said he kind of, his tastes in music changed. And luckily, they love the same kind of music that I love.
I mean, that's great. And you just mentioned Carrie Underwood there. And you got to play on stage with her like a couple of years ago, didn't you? What the heck was that like?
Oh, it was such an incredible experience. It was phenomenal. And I truly hope that, someday I'll go on to perform in front of crowds of the same size and hopefully even bigger crowds. But despite whatever I experience in the future, and even what I've experienced since I sang with her on stage, that will always be a really monumental moment for me because it was the biggest crowd that I'd played to at the time and still to date. And it just felt like it was really life-changing because even though I knew that was what I wanted to do, that moment felt like a turning point because I realized that you could love it even more than I thought you could, because being in front of a crowd of that size who loved what you were singing and were singing along with you and screaming and cheering, it was just unforgettable. I loved every minute of it.
And you'll have only, I mean, you're only young now, but you've only been quite sort of young in your journey as well. So to have that as an opportunity for you, that at that stage, that must have been crazy. How did that actually come about then? Did she see your work elsewhere and think, oh, this girl is she's got something here, maybe I should invite her on, or how did it come?
So I had actually never been to a concert before, and my parents, I'm not sure, I want to say it was for my 17th birthday. I think I was still 16, but this was for my 17th birthday. My parents were going to surprise me with Carrie Underwood tickets, and um, they bought the tickets and then realized that you could audition to sing with her, but they couldn't keep it a surprise from me or I wouldn't know to audition. So they kind of half revealed this secret, this surprise, and said, you should audition for this and we'll just, see what happens. So I auditioned, and actually had to audition with the rap portion of her song The Champion. So I did that, and I sent it in, and then I just thought, okay, I'm going to put it to the back of my mind now. You wouldn't find out until 7 days before. And 7 days came and went, and we heard no news. So I just assumed I didn't get it. And I was thinking, wow, if I can't get this, an actual opportunity within the country music world, then what can I get, And especially being in Wales and there not always being so many opportunities related to the genre. Um, but it turns out that we did get a call, but it was 2 or 3 days before. So I hadn't really rehearsed or done anything like that because those 7 days had come and gone. And my mum actually missed the phone call, but she went back and listened to her voicemails, and it was somebody saying, hey, this is Shelley from Carrie Underwood's team. And my mum kind of like didn't scream, but made some kind of, oh my gosh, like sound. And I came into the kitchen and she was crying, and I thought, oh my gosh, who died? Like something's really wrong. And she was like, you got it. And I was like, what did I get? Because I'd already put this to the back of my mind. And she was like, you're going to sing with Carrie. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is insane. But it was really a roller coaster. And a few months before this happened, on April Fool's Day, I actually put out an April Fool's, which I'm guilty of doing quite a lot. And I told all of my dreamers that I was going to be singing with her when she came to Cardiff. And that was not true at the time. That was just an April Fool's. But it was like a premonition because then it did happen. And I'm so glad that it did, because some of my dreamers had actually bought tickets to go see her and I wasn't going to be there. I wasn't going to be performing with her. I was like, oh my gosh. But luckily, I did sing with her, even though I had no idea at the time. And all the tickets that people bought were, it was okay because I did sing with her.
Wasn't it at the Grand Ole Opry as well? Is that the
Um,
venue?
that wasn't the venue. We were so this was her first time in Wales, and she performed in Cardiff at the
Oh, I
Motorpoint
see.
Arena. But I actually was at the Grand Ole Opry, but it wasn't to perform. It was for the Josie Music Awards, and I was lucky enough to win EP of the Year for my debut EP. So I got to stand on the stage at the Grand Ole Opry, but not to sing. Hopefully, sometime soon.
You've got to manifest it, haven't you? You know, if you
Yeah,
believe it, it potentially can happen, can't it?
you
And
get
now,
exactly.
did you ever expect though that at the age of 21 that you would not only be able to say you've got number one singles, you've won multiple awards, and all of this would be happening so fast.
I definitely, if I think back to 10 years ago when this was still my dream, back then too, if I had told myself, hey, this is where you'll be at when you're 21, I probably wouldn't have believed myself. I think it's just not that you don't believe your dreams will come true, but you just never know in which way they're going to present themselves and in which way they're going to manifest themselves. So it's cool to actually see in what ways the dream is slowly coming true. And I hope it continues to come into fruition and maybe skyrockets from here. That would be just a dream come true.
Are your sort of music inspirations then?
So I am a huge fan of Carrie Underwood, but I also love artists like Kelsey Ballerini, Maren Morris, Gabby Barrett. They are kind of the artists that I really fell in love with and would play on repeat constantly. But of course, there are the greats, like Dolly Parton, and I absolutely love her too. And I
Bow
just think
down, bow.
Bow Down, yes, and they really pave the way for artists like Kelsey Ballerini and like Carrie Underwood and hopefully like myself and any other independent artists chasing this dream. I really think that artists like that pave the way for us and make us realize that dreams do come true. Also, I didn't mention Taylor Swift, which how did I not mention Taylor Swift? She's also a huge
This is very
inspiration.
true. I mean, she is literally ruling the music world at the moment, isn't
She
she?
truly is. And she also defies so many borders that it makes you realize that it's a fluid process and that you can transition between genres as she has showcased to the world. And I know people didn't think she'd be able to pull it off, but she did way more than pull it off.
If you think about it, she was like one of the first of this last generation, I suppose, like in the last sort of 10 plus years,
Yeah.
who made that big step between the genres, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And I am old enough to remember sort of her when she was still technically a country singer. But since she's now got this whole wave of fans that potentially
Yeah.
might have never heard of classic country music
I
at
know.
all.
It's
So
crazy when some of like because I also think it's so important to really have a young fan base, and I know that a lot of the young people and the children who listen to my music will be singing Taylor Swift songs, and they're all her modern day stuff, and some of them haven't heard of the songs that I fell in love with, like Love Story and all of those songs that honestly are still a huge part of my life today. And I remember when I would be in primary school, which I guess is elementary school in the US.
mm,
I remember when I would be doing my homework and I would have her music videos on in the background. And my mum used to say, how can you, like, you just do your homework first? But actually, it really helped me to concentrate having music on in the background and having some creativity flowing, not just focusing on the work side. So it was nice to have both. It really helped me focus and concentrate.
I bet it did, yeah. Because I mean, just as you was talking about Love Story there, that her one of her old tracks.
Yeah.
It's weird what you remember when you were younger, because when that came out, I was 17, 18 years old. And
Oh,
I just remember the video, like just the way it
oh
was
yeah.
shot, and it was just amazing. And you look back and you think she was probably my age then.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
it's weird to think that there's this class of singers that in some form or other we've all grown up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? What can how the years can fly by and how you just sort of forget about what some of these artists did.
It really is. And also, I think because, her music is so widely played, even her old stuff is just constantly gaining new fan bases and more
Mm,
traction. I think she's almost frozen in time. Like, I know
yeah.
she's not the age she was when she first started, and she was very much more into the country scene than she is now. But it's crazy just to look at her and think, wow, she isn't still that age. You just see see her as this.
That's it. Yeah.
She's, yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
And one last thing on Taylor, because it's worth mentioning as well, because I don't think
Yeah,
it gets talked about enough, is that she advocated a while ago. I think Apple wanted to stream some of her music, and
yeah,
they weren't. And her view was that they weren't giving a fair price to the artists for what they were offering. And she was
yeah,
more not necessarily concerned just with her own music, but she was on about the people that are just coming up.
yeah,
And so she actually was able to make somewhat of a big change.
yeah.
And now because of her, a lot of the certainly Apple and some of the other streamers, they've started to sort of change the
Yeah,
way they do things slightly in terms of their pricing structure, which I think
yeah.
is amazing. It's just amazing what you can do.
Yeah, I think she really is an advocate, like you said, not just for herself, but for people
Oh,
coming up behind her, also for her fan base, which is huge. She really cares about their well-being and that they're being treated right. And I think that is so beautiful because that's not always a given. You don't always find that.
no, and
Yeah,
I think as well, like the music business as a whole is known to at times be pretty cutthroat and pretty savage at the higher you
it
go
is.
up the ladder. And
Yeah,
you know, so when we have moments like that, it needs to be mentioned, doesn't it? But
yeah.
back to you though, I'm having to look down at some of the notes I took because it's impossible to remember of all your accolades at this point. So you've had multiple number one songs. You've had multiple awards. I think, did you have single of the year?
I did.
Let me
I
just
had
email
trying
of the year potentially.
it's
There's
crazy
so
to
many.
kind it's really crazy to try and think about the things that you've achieved because sometimes you don't always look back and think this is where I started and this is where I am now, and because you're always focusing on what you want in the future, you don't always take the time to look back and realize that what you've got right now is actually what you wanted a few years
Mm,
ago, and so you are moving forward even when sometimes you feel like you're not. And I think everything happens at the right time and in the pace that it's supposed to. But I was lucky enough to win a few awards last year and this year. So I've just been really grateful that it's also opened a lot of doors and meant that I could travel, and that the reason that I'm able to travel is all because of my music. That just feels really special to me because there was a time when that felt really far away and that I wanted my music to take me to all these places, and now I'm blessed enough to say that it has.
it must be a great feeling as well to know that a lot of these songs that you wrote when you might have been in a different headspace and that you were able to relate to is now being related to in all different ways by lots of your fans out there as well. That must be such a special feeling.
Definitely. And I think one of the most important things that music does for us is relates to our life and doesn't always have to mean the same thing to us that it means to the person who wrote it. So even though music is therapy and writing songs about things that I've experienced really helps me through and gives me clarity, it's really important to me that whatever song I write can be interpreted differently by every single one of my dreamers. And hopefully it can apply to their situation and their life, and they don't feel like it's only about the things that I've experienced and I've seen and been through.
Yeah, of course. Now, a lot of the songs that you've brought out all have a slightly different tone to it in terms of the story when I'm listening to it anyway. What changed then from your sort of your debut EP perspective to some of your other stuff that you brought out?
Yeah. So some of the singles that I've released, and I also released two Christmas songs, kind of tell their own story and don't almost need to have a collection of songs to finish the story off. But then I have my debut EP Perspective, which was all about my extremely sadly toxic relationship with my older sister. And then fast forward to this EP that I will be releasing on October 13th, Seasons Change. That is kind of, although it's not really about her per se, it is about moving on and finding yourself and realizing that even when we feel down or when we feel like we're at the lowest point we've ever been, it's also about moving on and finding the light in every situation because there always is light. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to place than others, but it's important that we learn who we are and we discover ourselves, and that we grow, through whatever we're going through at the time. There's a lesson in everything, and it is just almost the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one. So I'm excited for the music that is to come even after this release because it will almost tell a whole different story. I feel like Seasons Change is the ending to Perspective, even though it's not specifically about my sister. It's about lots of things accumulated to create this collection of songs.
Which one of your songs that you've released today, Caitlin, would you possibly say at the stage you're at now in life and in your music journey, could you relate to the most?
I would say because I've been writing a lot of songs at the moment that aren't released, and sometimes those are the ones that stick in your head because if you wrote one yesterday, you're like, this is my new favorite. But out of my released songs, I would probably say the one that speaks to me the most, and I think will probably always speak to me, is Fiona, because it was the first song that I ever wrote acoustically when I learned to play guitar in lockdown. But it also talks about how my Princess Tower is taller than Fiona's. And I think sometimes we feel like that. We feel like we're the only person to be going through something or to feel alone. And it's important to remember that there is always a way out. And there are other people feeling that way, and sometimes finding them and finding a community and people who really understand what you're going through can be a lifesaver and a game changer. And I hope my music can be a part of that.
Do you think then that stages in your life that your ability to create, write, and produce music has saved you from whatever place you was in?
Definitely. I know that one of the most difficult times for me was high school and being really badly bullied. And I don't really know what my life would be like if music wasn't such a big part of it, because music speaks to the soul and it heals you even when you feel like you're in one of the stickiest situations. I was also really lucky to have a huge support system in my parents, despite the fact that I didn't have the relationship I wanted to have with my older sister. I know a lot of my peers, if they were going through something, then they had an older sibling who had already been through it and could really help them navigate that. But my sister was not that person for me, and high school was just quite a lonely time. But I always had music to turn to and also my parents to share all of that with.
So I've not actually mentioned yet your other songs. Take My Demons was awarded Song of the Year by ARC Radio listeners.
Yes,
What was that like? I mean, because that's a different award entirely, isn't it? Because that vote for the people, your fans, basically.
yeah, that was such a surreal moment. And I actually think that was the first award I'd ever won. So that will also always hold a special place in my heart. And I remember, because if there's one thing that I am, it's definitely very talkative. And I
That's not a bad
remember
thing.
and I remember when they called my name, at first, I didn't actually go out on stage because I guess I just wasn't fully taking it in that they called my name. And then somebody said to me backstage, "Are you gonna go on stage?" And I was like, "What for?" And they were like, "You won. You should probably go up there." Because I was actually waiting backstage to go on because I was supposed to play live. So I was just waiting for that cue, not actually waiting for my name to be called. So I went up and I accepted the award. I guess was supposed to give a little bit of a speech, but it was really more of a line or two that took a very long time to escape my lips, which is not like me. And people said, I've never seen you speechless. You like you always find something to say and something to talk about. So that was crazy. And luckily, I went on to win a couple other awards, and luckily I actually found the words much quicker after that.
Can you also just explain to our UK and European listeners here how massive these awards and country music is in America? I think a lot of us listen to it, we see the music videos and in some way ingrained in different parts of our life to different levels, but we don't necessarily have over in this part of the world huge industry
Yeah.
awards, and it's not more sort of a niche thing parts of Europe, isn't it, than it is in America?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that I think it's the fastest growing genre in the UK. I'm not sure if it is in Europe in general, but in the UK, it's the fastest growing genre. And I think you can really see a difference when you think back to 10 years ago and I said, "Oh, I'm a country singer." And people
Mm.
would say, "Oh, so you sing Dolly Parton," and she is a huge inspiration to me, and I definitely have covered her songs. But I was actually pursuing a career in original music, and they couldn't understand that, and they kind of thought, "But you're in the UK." And so I would explain my attachment to the US and kind of where my inspiration came from. And it is such a huge genre. I mean, it's unbeatable in the US. I know there are other parts of the world that it's hugely popular in too, but the USA just really seems to cultivate this huge country music community and following. And it really is incredible to see. I was actually lucky enough to be at CMA Fest this year, and I was at one of the booths meeting some of the country music fans who came from all over the world just to be there. And to see how many people flock to Nashville every year, is just crazy. You don't realize how many lives country music has touched. And I think that's really why I want to be a part of it, because country music, probably more so than any other genre, tells a story. And whether it's a beautiful one or a tragic one, it really brings people together. And I think people back home in the UK really are coming to terms with that and realizing that. And it's not a scary thing to love country music. I know when I was in high school, people were like, "You are so weird." And now people that I grew up with love it in their own ways, and they just realize that it's more than just a name, it's a feeling.
I've always wanted to ask somebody who was involved in country music, why do they think that it's so ingrained in Americana and American culture?
I really should know more of the history of it. And I've still got a lot of learning to do. I think sometimes when you are creative and you write songs, you get caught up in that part and you should really know more of the facts. But I just think that it speaks to people on a level that we don't always know how to verbalize. And I'm glad that I felt that way, even though I'm not from the US. And I know so many people who were born here, grew up here, who feel the same. I think it does bring people together globally. But I know that country music is or can be different in the States to what it is in the UK. And I know that I have met some people who say, you talk about trucks and tractors and beer in the UK, and why? And I'm like, so I guess that in some people's eyes, it should have a different flair to it, maybe if you're producing country music from the UK. But at the end of the day, I think if it tells a story and that story is raw and authentic, that it will speak to people, and there are people out there who feel the same way you do. It does bring people together, and I think we're stronger together. So if this community in the US and in the UK and everywhere that has a country music following could come together, then it really is unstoppable.
The reason I ask that is because I sort of feel that the last remaining true poetic music genres is country and folk music.
Yeah,
Because when you listen to those sorts of music genres, and then you compare it to, say, for example, a lot of modern commercialized music that you hear on a lot of the stations, radio
yeah.
stations, is a lot more to it there. There's a lot more layers, isn't there?
There is, yeah. And I think that to me, and I guess maybe I'm a little biased because I do love country music, it's one of the most emotional or emotionally charged genres. People really are speaking from the heart or singing from the heart and writing from the heart, which is beautiful. I don't always feel the same connection to pop songs or like electronic music. Some there are exceptions, but country music just seems to always hit home and make you feel exactly what they're singing about.
I don't know if it's just an age thing with me now, but I sort of feel like I've been through my loving and lots of pop music.
Yeah,
And so I now just sort of dabble in that here and there, but I'm more
yeah,
so gravitating to the poetry aspect, like I say. I've started to go to a lot of like smaller independent festivals that just do like folk and country sorts of
yeah.
music. And there's just a different vibe, isn't there, in those sort of genres? Like
It is.
you attend a festival that is just for those sorts of music. It's completely different than going to a big pop or
It
rock
is.
festivals. So there's just the vibe is different.
It
It's
is.
I know it sounds weird to say, but and I don't know if some sort of feeling along these lines, but having gone to say, for example, a few folk festivals now, for argument's
Mhm.
sake, I feel safe at these things. I don't feel like I'm going to stumble into a situation that escalated quickly or
No.
even though the ingredients for that to happen are still there, it's just
Yeah.
something different, isn't there, in those genres?
It is. I think it's important to the artists who are sharing their music, but also to the fans that it feels like home.
Mm.
So, from the first time that I ever visited Nashville in May of 2022, it really felt like people wanted me to be in Nashville, which was crazy because there was a huge sense of belonging, and it was my first time in Nashville. It wasn't my first time in the States, but it was in Tennessee. And I just didn't realize you could feel so at home so quickly when the hometown that I grew up in never quite had that same feeling of belonging and encouragement and just pure light. I really think that Tennessee and Nashville exudes light. People just want you to be happy and to be who you are. And that is because everybody's so different, but nobody is judged for it. It's a good thing to be unique and to be different and to really follow the path that you feel you should follow.
It's interesting you say that there, 'cause I'm sort of wondering off the back of that then, do you think that that's also potentially a cultural thing? Obviously, in the UK in particular, it's not necessarily a hotbed for just naturally optimistic and positive types of characters, is it?
Yeah, and why is that? I don't really know. I don't understand it, but I've always kind of felt that way. And I suppose it depends because sometimes you're lucky and you run in a circle that is just full of beautiful souls. But, other times you aren't lucky enough to be in that circle. And I know that for me, the community that I found myself in was mostly growing up in like the educational system.
Mm.
And I wasn't homeschooled until halfway through my first year exams, which was a really difficult time to come out of school and then be
Incredibly difficult, yeah.
homeschooled. Yeah, because there was really no preparation, and it was just one day I was in school and the next I wasn't because my parents felt they couldn't send me back. I wasn't safe. I'd had my ribs fractured. I'd had, physical attacks, but also probably the most difficult ones are emotional attacks because you might heal physically, but sometimes emotionally it takes a lot longer to heal those wounds and for them to turn into scars. And I'm lucky that that's what they are now, just scars or battle wounds. But
Yeah.
and music was the thing that really got me through that. But I found that maybe it's because the arts are so huge in the United
Hmm.
States and that's encouraged. I know that in high schools and colleges, sports and the arts are very much amplified. And maybe that's what I was missing in the area that I grew up in because it wasn't really encouraged. It was more they wanted you to go down a scientific field or teaching was highly encouraged, but actually pursuing music was definitely not. In fact, it was more stamped out. I remember some of my teachers saying, "What's your plan B? You need to have a plan B." And I said, "I do have a plan B. My plan B is to make plan A work." And I was
Yeah.
sent out of class for that. So I was in a lot of trouble for saying that.
Well, this is what I'm sort of getting at, really, because if you're right, if you do say those like big dreamer types of statements
Hmm.
over here, it's almost
Yeah.
inbuilt in us as a nation to just go, hold on a minute, what
Yeah.
are you doing? What are you doing for
Yeah.
hundreds, if not thousands of years as a people? This is what we've done. We've got a practical
Hmm.
skill.
Yeah.
This is what you do, and then it's just the norm through the
Yeah.
generations. And if someone tries to break the conventional norm, all of a sudden we don't necessarily, at least in this country, know how to, I don't think, to even comprehend that someone could get out of
Yeah.
that sort of cycle. I'm wondering if that might be a part of it as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I do think that maybe anywhere in the world, but my experiences are more attached to where I grew up. I think people are just afraid to dream. And it's probably not that they're afraid of the dream itself, they're afraid of failure. So they'd rather not try so that they never have to say, I tried and failed. But I would rather try and fail and get up again and dust myself off and give it another
Mm,
shot than never give it a shot and regret what I never did. So it's not to say that I'm 21 and I've never failed, because I have. I've definitely failed, but I really think those failures teach you so much, and they teach you more than being safe ever could, because playing it safe just means you can never truly be happy if you don't try and reach for the stars that you're dreaming of. I think it's cool that this life can be all about chasing the dreams that we've always had.
of course, and at the end of the day, there's if you actually, the way I think about it is if people want to do that and they've got that mindset and they've got that work rate and drive, then
Yeah.
we should take a leaf out the Americans book and be a little bit
Yeah.
more supportive, shouldn't we? I mean, at the end of the day, what does it cost for us to be a little bit more optimistic for someone else's sake, you know?
I think that too. And I think it is just about what's been instilled in us. And I know my
Mm,
parents instilled in me that no dream is too big. And I really feel that in all the places I've visited in the States, because I've been to a few different places, and usually the mentality is much the same. And people will ask me what I do for a living, and they'll ask me what my dreams are. And when I share them, they don't even bat an eyelid. To them, that makes perfect sense that I have a
mhm.
huge dream. And they don't say, well, don't you think that's not attainable? I've never heard that in the US. But I mean, I guess it is just how you grow up and who
Yeah,
you're exposed to. And I'm glad that I've been able to travel and experience and meet different people, because even if I was born in the US, who knows if I'd be the person that I am, because without being exposed to the other end of the spectrum. So I'm glad that I've
yeah.
had both.
How important as well then in your life and career with regards to your music has the support of your family been to you?
It's been huge, it really has. And I think some of my family members think I'm crazy. They're like, that's the girl who does music. Like, and they
Yeah,
just, but I don't think it's really that they disapprove of it. I think it's that they're probably a little confused by it. But most of my family are so encouraging and loving. I think loving is the word, because who knows, maybe they do think it's crazy, but they just hide it really well. But they exude love, and that's the most important part. Like, I know that my parents just want me to be happy and healthy, and like I said, just to reach for the stars. And my grandparents, actually, on my mum's side, my grandmum loved the arts growing up, and she would act and write poetry, and she is a writer, and so is my mum, actually. So I think that that creative vein really does trickle down from
yeah,
them, and I'm hugely grateful for them, because to me, in my eyes, my grandmum and my mum, they are really powerful female figures in my life,
mm,
and they're huge role models to me. And I think, I know we always talk about role models, and we put them on this pedestal, and we they're almost unattainable, because we think of pop stars and rock stars and famous
mhm,
people and actresses, and but I think it starts at home. And my grandmum and my mum were some of the first people who I looked up to and thought, wow, I can be independent and strong, and I can succeed and achieve anything because they did. And I feel the same way about all of my family and my dad too. But I know that obviously having a female figure as a female to look up to is so important, and not everybody has that, or finds it so soon. And I was lucky that I was born into knowing that they're great people, and I just want to be half the people that they are.
of course, yeah. What's been sort of like the highlight the last sort of year or two for you? Has it been the number ones that you've had? Has it been the awards you've picked up? Has it been a particular festival you've played?
So I think it's so hard to choose just a number one thing that takes the cake, because I think it's more of an accumulation of things and experiences and moments that you'll remember forever. And you kind of create this metaphorical collage in your head that you'll
Yeah,
just never, ever forget. But probably one of the most important things that I have found on this journey, and that I can't imagine being any other way, is the dreamers that I've been able to connect with, and whether that's in person at live shows or whether it's doing live streams, which I started back in lockdown. And that was when my listeners developed the name Dreamers, because my first single was called The Dream. And then lockdown happened and we had to move online. And I was actually, in doing that, able to connect with people from a lot further afield, which meant that I had more dreamers in the US and Australia, and there's too many places to mention. And I think it's so cool that we're able to still come together on these live streams, and that now I've been able to meet some of them in person, and they're a huge part of the dream that I could probably never have envisaged. And now I can't imagine being any other way. And the experiences that I've had playing some shows that have been some of my favorites wouldn't have been the same if they weren't a huge part of it.
And obviously, you touched on the importance and the effect that your fans have had there. Have you got any particular poignant stories that where you've some fans come up to you or sent you a message about how much your music has helped them or connected with them?
Yeah, definitely. I've had sometimes it's been messages depending on distance and the difficulty of being able of some of them being able to come to my live shows.
Mm.
But I've also had some where it's been in person, and after a show we've been able to talk, and they've said how much some of the songs that I wrote for one reason spoke to them for a totally different reason. And I think
Yeah,
that really is magical, that it can get somebody else through something, and that wasn't even what you wrote the song about, but it can just be applied to so many different instances in people's lives. And I do think music is a universal language, so there
mm,
is no barrier there. And to be able to share my songs that got me through hard times just by writing them with people who it also spoke to, that's just, I think, unmatched. You can't find something else quite as special as that.
do you think as well that obviously because we live in a very strange time at the moment, there's a lot of like
Yeah.
division in the world
Mhm.
for one level or another and one reason or another. Do you think there's your music in that is why it's connecting with a lot more people then? Not only because you're able to get them the message out about your music, but because of the content of it,
Yeah,
of the story and things like that.
I really hope so, because I know that, you know, like they say, and it might sound like a cliche, but you never know what somebody else is going through until you can walk a mile in their shoes. And we
That's
really
right.
can't do that, so you never know what somebody else is going through. And just because they're smiling and saying one thing doesn't always mean that's how they feel deep down. So to be able to share songs and music, and not because somebody's going through something, but just in case, and
Yeah.
just to be a friend, and to be somebody that they can confide in, whether that is through words or just through feeling and emotion. Because I think a lot of the time we can be in a room with people, and it feels healing, even if you're not talking about anything in particular. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes nice to know you're not alone and you're experiencing these things with other people. Country music
Uh,
has a huge sense of community.
Yes, yeah. But following on from that, then, obviously you've played a lot of festivals like this year and last. This is more of a two-part question, really. The first part of the question is, what has been your sort of favorite festival or gig you've been able to play recently? And
Yeah.
what has been the most surprising fan reaction you've got to a song you've played that you personally liked, but you didn't like it as much as some of the other stuff you've played?
Okay, yeah. So, probably my favorite show that I've played as of recently would be the release party for the single Seasons Change. So that was in Nashville at a place or a bar that is an Irish bar, and that I actually found just through coincidence, because I stayed at the hotel next to the bar, and we
Right.
would go there a lot, and we just became close with people there. And we held the release party for Seasons Change there, and it was an open invitation to all my dreamers. And it wasn't ticketed, just because I wanted to really have a sense of community and family and an army of dreamers in one room, with there not being any barriers. I didn't want people to think, oh, I can't afford a ticket, and then to go in and enjoy the music and buy a drink. I just wanted people to be able to come. So, and people drove from hours and hours away, which blew my mind, because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I'd never held a show like that before in Nashville, and people drove from states away and up to 9 hours away. There were people
Oh,
who were actually
it's
visiting.
amazing.
It was incredible. There were people who were actually visiting from different countries, who weren't just from the US, and there was so much love in the room, and to be able to share some of the songs that I'd never played live before too. And I did an acoustic set and a full band set, so we got to experience something a little more intimate, and then something that was louder and prouder, and you could really
Yeah,
just put your all into it. So it was nice to have a variety of different things going on that night. So there was music from different artists that night, not just my own music. And it made me feel even more at home, if that's possible, because I realized that I've never had more friends than I had in that moment, and I've got
mm,
even more now. It's a constant, it's a ever changing thing now, because when I was in high school and I felt like I didn't have any friends, to now where I am feeling like anywhere I go or any way I look, there's a friend there. It's
yeah,
just so massively different. And
yeah.
to
How many?
answer,
Sorry, go
no,
on.
no, no, I was just going to say, to answer your other question, probably one of the most surprising reactions to my music was at a different show back in the UK. And this was a country music festival, but it was like a country music week. And it's called Breen Country Music Festival. I performed there, and I was playing my original songs. And there was one, I think it was the song, it's unreleased, but it's a song I wrote called Are You Lonely Now? There was a
Right.
little girl, and she's one of my little dreamers. Sometimes she'll wear a check shirt and it'll say Little Dreamer on it, and she has a bow saying Little Dreamer. And
Oh, that's awesome.
she's incredible, and so are all of the little dreamers in that community, because I met them through Breen Country Music Festival. And she started to cry. I was playing this song acoustically myself, no band. And usually it doesn't really matter what's going on. I'll finish the song. I don't stop. But something just really compelled me to stop in the middle of this song, because she was so emotional. And I came off stage and I gave her a hug, and I asked her if she was okay, if there was anything that I could do. And she told me a story about her grandfather, who is in heaven now, which is how she said it, and how the song reminded her of him. And it just really just blew me away. And it kind of sounds crazy to say, but broke my heart and put it back together at the same time, because it was really wholesome. But it is heartbreaking to lose somebody, and for them to be in heaven and no longer with us. And
Yeah,
even though that's not particularly what the song was about, the song was actually about losing a friend, um, just because they're not in your life anymore, and maybe you drifted apart, or maybe there was a catalyst as to why you aren't so close anymore. And she just interpreted it in her own way, and it really just made me feel seen, even though it was a
yeah.
song that I wrote for a totally different reason. And I hope that it made her feel the same way.
And the reason I sort of made reference to like the festivals and stuff that you might have played is because a few weeks ago when we were trying to arrange this, you was actually in Italy, I think, um,
Yes.
and you was on your way there, and I was having correspondence with someone in your team
Yeah.
because we were going to do it on a certain date, and then things change.
Oh,
How was that?
it was absolutely incredible. And it was my first time in Italy, just in
Whereabouts
general.
in Italy was it?
So it was a small village called Montisi, but I actually
Nice.
flew into Rome and it was like a 2.5 hour drive. And it was actually quite chaotic getting from the airport to where we were
Yeah.
staying and the area that the festival was in, just because the roads are different. And the lady who was driving had not driven a stick shift in, I think she said 30 or 35 years. And she was trying to get the hang of it. And she was like, I just think we might die. I was like, no, not before the festival.
No, no.
But it was such a surreal experience, and to be there with everybody else, it was just so special. And we got to share music that was so different. So there was actually an Italian band playing first, and then the rest was kind of a Nashville sound being brought to Montisi, this small village that I never would have known about if it wasn't for the festival. So I think it was meant to be, and we were meant to be brought all that way to Italy and to play that festival and share music with people from all over the world too, because there were a lot of people there who were just tourists. They were just there for the festival, and it was to celebrate somebody's birthday. So the guy who actually ran the festival, or who put the festival on, it
Mm.
was his birthday, and he had people visiting from all over. There were people from America, people from the UK, people who were locals too, which was cool to have a little bit of everything there.
So wait, let me get this straight. So the guy that organized the festival, it was his birthday, so he decided because it was his birthday, what better way than to throw yourself a festival like
Festival.
party? That is the
Yeah,
most epic birthday
I
gift to
know.
yourself I can possibly think of on
I
planet
know.
Earth.
Me too. And it really, I think, was a gift to everybody because the locals had never really had anything like that there in Montesi and hadn't heard country music. They also brought in some local sounds too by having an Italian band there, that place, and in those
Yeah.
people. It was really cool.
Was it your first time in Italy as well, Kate?
Yeah, my very first time in Italy. And I've said to my parents and to everybody that I've spoken to about it that who's to say that I wouldn't have traveled to Italy at some point, but I probably would never have traveled to Montisi because I wouldn't have even known it existed
Existed,
because
yeah.
it's such a small little village. And the fact that music can take you to so many places, big and small, is just incredible to think about.
Yeah. Was there a few different acts on that weekend as well?
Yeah, so I traveled with the band to Italy as well as some of the artists who were going to be playing, and they were all Nashville based, except for the Italian band. Oh, and there was somebody who came from the UK. I think she is from the US, but she is studying, I think, in
Right.
London right now. So it just brought so many people from so many different walks of life together. It was really surreal.
Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah. Did you get to sample some of the food though?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Next
It was so
level.
tasty. And the other thing is I definitely love coffee. I shouldn't
Me
love
too,
it as
yeah.
much as I do. I
Mm,
actually was really good for a while, and I went like 3, 4 months with no coffee. And if I did have any, it was only ever decaf, and I really cut it
yeah,
down. And then I don't know what happened, but I now I drink like two a day,
yeah.
and like two large, sometimes like two venti size
American large as well.
coffee. Yeah, yeah,
No,
like
UK large.
jumbo
Yeah.
sized coffees, and
See,
I'm bouncing off
that's
the
UK
walls.
large.
Yeah, that's I know, and this is a US. This
Yeah.
is just a venti. There's an even bigger one than this.
Oh God, that's so funny.
It's bigger than
Yeah,
my head. There's a bigger one than that, and that blows my mind. But and that's not just Starbucks, that's wherever you go. You
yeah.
ask for a large and it's gonna last you a couple weeks. Like it's crazy. It really is. But the coffee in Italy is second to none.
Bet
And
it
it's so
was.
funny. They bring out a cappuccino, there is just a one size, and it's
Yeah,
like you said, it's small. Like it is small, but it's so good. And I don't know if you're supposed to go back for seconds, but that's how I do it. So
yeah, 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 yeah. See, I absolutely love coffee, right? And a few years ago, I decided, all right, I'll just see about tomorrow not having any coffee, right? And at the time, I went to a local like artisan, like independent place to get my
Yeah.
ground coffee, right? And I swear to you, I didn't realize how much I was clearly putting in me. It was so strong that I'd got built up a tolerance to it. So when I stopped, I started developing the shakes. I had a
Yes.
headache. It was
That's
mental. And but to be fair, I was having three, four, five a day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm the same now. Sometimes if for my parents, when they watch this, I'm going to be in so much trouble because I was doing so good. I was only having a coffee that was decaf maybe once a week. Like I'd
Mm,
weaned myself off it and it took a lot of willpower. And I don't know what happened to my willpower. It disappeared because now I'm drinking like at least one a day of this size, sometimes more. It depends. I think I'm gonna treat myself to a coffee because I
mm,
just finished my last coffee, so I'm gonna treat
yeah.
myself. So
Yeah, why not? But when you're on tour then, what is your like go-to like food? What's your go-to rider?
go-to food when I'm on tour. I mean, I am somebody who very much likes to try different food. I
Yeah,
I love the fact that you don't have to stay within one kind of
yeah,
area. So when I'm traveling, especially if you're traveling to different countries that really do have different cuisine, I like to fully immerse myself in it.
yeah.
But I always think you can't go wrong with pizza and chicken wings and that kind of
Mm.
thing. I'm a sucker for buffalo chicken wings. It's probably the messiest food you can eat. Clumsy, I always
Not
keep it
great
on.
for a first date, is it?
It's not. And you know, because I haven't dated except for this one story where I went somewhere and I thought we were meeting up as friends. I got there and realized it was a date, and I was not made aware of that. And we were eating. He decided that we were going to share chicken tenders and fries platter. So I'm like trying to only eat the fries because I'm a
Yeah.
savage when I eat chicken.
You
And
go into
anything
full animal mode, don't
I do. This is every man for himself.
you?
So,
If you stop, I'm not. It's like mentality.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I was trying to compose myself. So I was like, I'll just pick at a few fries because that's ladylike, right? And I'm trying to be a lady. So
yeah.
he ate most of the chicken tenders, but then he proposed to me.
What?
I know, that's what I said. And and I didn't even know it was a date, but apparently it
Hold
was
on
a
a minute.
marriage proposal.
We need to slow down here because we went from savagely eating food, which is one talking point,
One
but
end
then shifted to he's going to propose on the first date.
on exactly the
How
first
does
date that I
I mean,
didn't know was a date.
there's two ways to think about that, right? Okay, because on the one hand, it's a massive compliment to give, but on the flip side of that, you could
hmm
literally be a serial killer or
I could
some
be.
dodgy person, and
I
vice
could
versa.
be. Exactly. And also, you just said on the flip side, and I wrote a song about him called Flip Side. I literally did.
I didn't plan that.
It was hilarious. And the hook of the song is here's the flip side. Our lips touched and a spark died. But like there was no spark to begin with, but there certainly wasn't after he kissed me. And that should never have really happened because I didn't even know it was a date. But I just realized that surely there is some kind of etiquette when you go on a date with somebody. And I just thought like, you can kiss me goodnight. It was my first kiss. I kind of regret
Yeah.
that because if I had known
Hold
it
on,
was a
hold on. You still let him kiss you after he suddenly proposed to you on the first
well,
date.
I felt bad because I first of all I said no to the fact that he proposed to me because I was like, we don't actually know each other. And
You are such a
also,
nice person. Like
and I
I know so many people that have heard "Will you marry me" on the very first date when you're getting to know each other, and literally like out in like you see in one of those dating TV shows where they go into the bathroom, they ring their friends up and
oh,
tell
they're
how it's
gone.
going, and then they're gone. Yeah, yeah.
Gone. I could have done that. I should have done that. I didn't even think about it. I guess I always think maybe
So
too
you
much
could you,
about
you
hurting
could have wrote
people's
a song
feelings.
called "Had to Go."
Had to go, yeah, had to go, gotta go. See you never.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
Now
take the chicken tenders and run.
Yes, that's it, right? How diverse are the sort of the US crowds? Like in because obviously I'm assuming you go to like different areas and different potentially different states. So what are the biggest differences?
Wow, I mean, it's difficult because I've had great experiences everywhere that I've traveled in the US. And, in the grand scheme of things, I haven't traveled to that many places here in America. But I think that one of the biggest similarities is their love for people. I remember when I was super young and visiting Florida because we would go there usually once a year. And I had some friends who lived in the same gated community as we had our villa. And we set up a lemonade stand, which was my bright idea. And we would make Rice Krispie treats and we'd have fresh homemade lemonade and all this stuff. And the community really came out to support it because they were like, these kids are so young and they're doing this. And I guess that we weren't out doing something that would be considered naughty and rebellious. They wanted to support and reward that. So the amount of cars that would stop and buy lemonade, and or even if they didn't want to drink, they'd just put some money into our little container. We'd take that money and we'd go buy new supplies and we'd be back there the next day to sell our lemonade and our Rice
Yeah.
Krispie treats. And our table was just made up of boxes with a tablecloth over the top of it. It
Did you
wasn't
do well?
actually
Did you sell out?
we did, yeah, we did. And then
Nice work.
eventually we started which I feel kind of bad about. This is why I say this was my bright idea, but we eventually started to take money and work away from the other people in the area who were selling beverages. There was somebody who would like drive around selling like wine because it was on a golf course and
Right.
selling alcohol, and we were taking away business from her, and they actually put up a sign right where the lemonade stand was saying no loitering. So we couldn't do it anymore. But
Oh,
for a while, the community, they just really all came out in support of it. And I remember one of those trips to the supermarket, it was just the dollar store,
yeah.
to pick up supplies. There was a lady and she was a little older and she was struggling with all her shopping. And me and my friends who set up the lemonade stand offered to help her pack her shopping away. And she was like, "Oh no, you of course you don't have to do that." And but we wanted to, so she
Yeah.
let us help. I don't know how much help we were. We were super young. We were probably more of a hindrance. But then she tried to pay us for helping her put her shopping away. And of course, we wouldn't take any money. We just wanted to help. But it's crazy to me how you can always find a sense of community, I feel like, everywhere that I've traveled in the US. And that's what really draws me here.
Now, how long have you actually been living in the US permanently then?
A couple months before I headed to Italy to play a festival. And
Right.
then since Italy, I've maybe just about 3 weeks
Right.
since I came back. I actually didn't know if I was going to come back or if I was going to head back to the UK because I had a few things to get done there as well. But it didn't line up at the time, so I'm in Nashville right now. But I'm pretty sure I'll be back in the UK before long because I've got some things on the list, on the to-do list.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Check off.
The reason I asked that though is because a lot of the time you hear about people that have either coming from the UK to America or America to the UK, and they always talk about the cultural differences, don't they? That they spot, whether it's
Yeah.
the words in which we speak or
Ah,
the food, the just the general everyday way that each country is, and pe
yeah.
what were the ones that stood out to you there when you started spending more time in America? Was the one thing that you went, oh, well, we don't do that where I'm from, or
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the biggest things is some of the differences in vocabulary. So
yeah,
I know that they call fries, no, they call fries fries. We call fries chips. So if
yeah, that's
we
right.
order chips, they'll come with crisps, and to them, they're like, "What? That is what chips are. Chips are chips." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" But luckily I haven't really fallen into that trap so much just because we made those mistakes back in Florida where we ordered like 6 portions of chips because for the whole
And I
family.
bet they were like massive, weren't they?
And they did, yeah, and they came with all these bags of crisps. And we were like, oh no. No.
Mm.
And sometimes I'll say, I'll ask if something is fizzy, like if it's fizzy lemonade or if it's still. And sometimes they just
And
look
they'll
at me
go,
like, are
there is
you
only
okay?
one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And or I'll say pop, and to them it's soda, and they don't,
yeah.
what is pop? And so there are some differences, and you just kind of catch yourself sometimes. Like the other day, I pointed out a lorry that I saw,
Yeah.
and my manager Kim was like, "What is that?" Because yeah, they call them trucks or semi trucks,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
call them. I mean, we call them trucks too, but lorry is just what I would say.
Has there ever been any like funny stories that you've had since you've been over there where like maybe, for example, like you say, you've been trying to order something, and then they brought out the complete opposite to what you ordered because of they didn't understand what you meant. Or
Yeah,
even if it's just at like a different like social event or something like that where you've been talking to people and they've not quite understood, they may have said a phrase that where you come from they don't use.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of some specific stories. I know that I have this one friend from Kentucky, and I'll tell him something, and he'll say, "Can you repeat that?" And then I'll say it again. He'll say, "Okay, stop," on the word that he wants to know about. Then he'll ask me
Yeah.
to give a definition of the word, and he actually has on his notes on his phone, he's created like a document where he adds the words I've said, and he puts the definition next to them.
Do you know what? I've often wondered, right, and I've thought this for a while, and maybe someone has already done it, but why have they not written a book that literally is for both UK folk going to America and American going to the UK and Europe? Because it would be
They should.
so much easier if they just went, oh, oh, ah, that's what that means. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean also something else that is hard to get used to, especially with the translation on my phone when I type things in, is how we spell certain words like color, and it's spelt
yeah.
differently in the US just with an O, and I automatically go to add the U, and then it's wrong, and I'm like, how is that wrong? It's weird that we spell those words differently.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange.
It is strange. Now, one of the things I haven't mentioned, and I should mention because it's pretty amazing, really, that in August last year, you went to the International Singer-Songwriters Awards. What was that like? Because there must have been like a who's who there for
Yeah.
that
Oh,
occasion.
it
Did
was.
you get to meet anyone like that you've idolized, looked up to while you were there?
So it's quite widely known as more of an independent artists award show.
I
Um,
suppose you can still have like big independent artists and small independent
yeah,
artists, can't you?
definitely. And I met a lot of people who I think are absolutely incredible, and I call friends now. And I remember
Mm.
my first year there, which was last year. And sometimes you think, okay, maybe I'll go to this event or award show or whatever it might be, and maybe you'll stand out or be a little left out because you're new there. There were, I think, a few other new people there, new artists who'd never
Yeah.
been involved in the awards before. But it wasn't like that. It was instantly like a huge family, very inclusive, and they just want everybody to be recognized for the work they've done and what they've achieved. And I was lucky enough to win two awards there. It totally blew me away, and I really did have the best time. And I think the ISSA has really opened up a lot of doors for me too, because it meant a lot more traveling and also branching out and meeting new people outside of the US. It was really an honor to be involved and to be invited there.
Yeah, because I mean, I've not even referenced all the awards you won. Because you won Music of the Year somewhere, didn't you? A video, should I say? And you were, was it Female Artist of the Year as well at some point?
Yeah, Female Vocalist of the Year Gold Award at the ISSAs, and also Music Video of the Year at the ISSAs too, which was just such an incredible moment.
I'm laughing because I wrote all this research down earlier on because I didn't want to miss anything out, and I've worked out that trying to do two things at once is quite tricky. So I'm looking down at a lot of my notes, and I probably missed
No,
about half the important bits.
actually, because I know that sometimes somebody asks me a question, I go off on eight tangents, and I've told stories that I wasn't even asked about.
Yeah.
So
What was it like to have your single Little Black Dress debut on the Countryline radio? That must have been a
Oh,
heck of a moment.
it really was. It was incredible. And the support from Countryline, but also so many other stations has been incredible and so heartwarming because, it takes an army to be able to share your music and
Yeah,
to get it out there and to share your story and to really find your people. And in my case, my dreamers and to reach those people. So it takes more than just one person and it takes the drive of many. And I'm
yeah,
just really grateful that so many stations have played my music and I've been interviewed by so many incredible people and people have done reviews of my music and shared it across social media platforms and
yeah.
done news articles and it's something that snowballs before your eyes and you don't even realize it at the time and you look back and you think wow, without all these people I would be 100 steps back,
Do you think as well, like that, because of your journey and the sudden sort of success that you've had in a fairly short space of time, do you think that's maybe altered your view on what success could be and is for you?
Definitely, I think so because I think it starts when you're super young and you're watching TV shows and movies, and this is your idea of success. Like whether you watch musicals or I would watch a lot of movies that were about pop stars or rock stars, country stars, and kind of their journey to fame and to performing
Yeah.
globally and doing stadium tours. But what you see is such a polished, clean,
Mm,
sanitized version of that. It's actually a lot more messy and a lot more. It's not point A and point B. It's like point A and point B is like you have to go
yeah.
to different spots to get there. And that's not what it shows you commercially, whether
Mm,
it's, a story you've read or whether it's a movie you've watched. It's it takes a lot more than that and it takes hard work. It takes an army and occasionally it takes a sprinkle of luck and there's so many
yeah.
different aspects to it.
Have you had, or have you got somebody, should I say, sort of in your corner that is able to sort of like shield you away from the pitfalls of the business? Because you hear a lot of stories, going back years of people that had a lot of success early on when they were young, whatever. And then for
Yeah,
one reason and one reason or another, like they didn't get advised to stay away from certain things or maybe
yeah,
not listen to this section of the audience or the crowd or people in general. Just
yeah,
is there somebody you've got in team there that looks out for you? The reason I ask that is because there's a lot of examples in every genre of music where somebody, certainly in the last sort of 15 years with the rise of
yeah,
the internet and social media, who's able to get their music out quicker than previous generations, who have fallen into those traps where they've got
yeah,
a lot of success, they've had a lot of accolades thrown on them very young when they wouldn't necessarily be prepared for it. And
yeah.
it can mess with the head, can't it? So I'm
It
just wondering
can.
it from your perspective, how you go about avoiding those traps and those pitfalls.
Yeah, it can. And I think it can also put people off and make them veer off their initial path and just change their trajectory because sometimes
Mm,
bad experiences and really just change what you want. And I've been lucky enough that my parents have always been two very strong pillars of what is right and what is wrong. And they've always been very protective of me, which I'm really lucky to have. And then fast forward to where I am now. And in fact, fast forward, but then rewind to about 6 months ago. I met my manager, Kim, and he is also that person for me. So now I'm lucky that I don't just have my parents who care more than just about my music and my career, but about my well-being and my safety and just all of those things combined. I had my parents for that and now I'm lucky that I have Kim as well because he is incredible and he just wants what's best for me too. He wants
mm.
what's best for me as a person and also for my career and I think
Of
wants to
course.
protect my heart because you have to do that to ensure that you remain passionate and that this is still what you want because I think if you're heading for it and you don't really want it, it will become apparent because by the time you really reach those stars and you have what you think you always wanted,
Yeah.
if you've already been kind of battered by the industry and you didn't have somebody to look out for you, then it can really come to a head and can be a little
Mm.
bit of a disaster. So I'm lucky that I have those people in my life who really care about how I'm doing.
Yeah, that's important, and that's really good to hear. Following on from that, then, how does success look for you in say, for example, 10 years' time? Would success be having more number ones, more awards? Would it be having the financial rewards, or would it be able to like tick off a bucket list festival that you've always wanted to play?
I think that overall it's a feeling that you have. So I know that I want to be happy and I want to feel fulfilled and I still want to be sharing my music and number ones and awards and financial rewards too are definitely one aspect of it, but I think they're probably not the most important. So for me, I'd love to be doing what I'm doing now, but on a much larger scale. So the people that I'm able to reach with my music right now, I would love for that to be times millions.
Yeah, yeah,
I would
yeah.
love to be able to tour the world. Maybe a headline stadium tour would be so
That'd be
incredible and to
awesome.
be able to share music on that kind of level, kind of like what Taylor Swift is doing now and what she's achieving and she's able to bring so many people together in one place and they all share a common love,
Mhm.
and I think that is so special. And to be able to be one singular person, I know she has a huge team behind her too, who
Mm.
obviously care for her and are protective over her, like the
Yeah.
team that I have, just on a smaller, more intimate scale right now. She
Mm.
obviously has those people on her team, but she is like an icon that people look
She's
at
super
and
smart as well. Don't think people give her enough credit for being
yeah,
smart as she is.
really is.
She's been able to maximize her potential, obviously with the help of a team, but
Yeah.
it takes an element of smarts, not only from a business point of view, but to be able just to navigate your way through those shark-infested waters that, as we say, people can fall into those traps, can't they?
Really can, and she is very intellectual, and I think, like you were saying earlier, she wants more than just what's good for her. She wants what's good for
Yeah,
everyone around her, whether that's her team and her family and
yeah.
her friends, but also her fan base. She cares a lot about her fan base, and
It's interesting as well, I think, because often when we're younger, we can sometimes strive for the material aspects of things. Be it, I want the big house, I want the nice car, I want this or I want that. But you take a Taylor Swift, for example, who you just mentioned, and then you could also reel off the Dolly Partons and so many more. These people now they've got all that. That's not the driver for them because
no,
that's not what they wake up in the morning and go, I need another five of those. Because
yeah, no.
that's cool, but
That's
that's a byproduct, like you're saying, of what you guys do.
Yeah, and I think that almost it's easy to know what's important to you when you
Mm,
wake up in the morning and it's the first thing you think about, and you go to sleep at night and it's the last thing you think about. And for me,
yeah.
it's my dreamers and my family that I think of when I wake up. They just inspire me to roll out of bed and write more songs and release them and just in the hopes that my music can reach more people and speak to them on a level that I probably can't even imagine because everybody's feelings are different and the way people react is different and their
Yeah.
perspectives are going to be subjective. So I would just love to be able to have the close-knit relationship and bond that Taylor Swift has with her fan base, with my
Mm.
dreamers, which I feel like we have, but I would love for that to grow the scale that Taylor Swift has.
Is there any like music that you listen to when you're not touring or playing live shows, which is completely out the realm of country? Is there anything that would surprise any of your fans that you go, I actually give that a listen time to time?
Trying to think. I mean, I did used to love, I can't even think of the names right now, but I did used to love some of Eminem's songs when I was growing up.
Yeah,
I did have some of his songs on my iPod, and if I heard them now, I'd probably be able to just
yeah.
like beam off the lyrics like easy because they were
Mm.
just part of my childhood. But really, I do feel completely immersed in the country music world. So a lot of the songs on my playlist are country or subgenres of it. So I definitely
Mm,
have some country rock, some country pop. I do have some more folk focused songs.
yeah,
Because I know Taylor Swift did folk album, right? Or she did two. They were like
I think
sisters.
she did. Yeah.
I thought they
Um,
were really cool. There's so much. I think music, if you love music, then it speaks to you and it defies genres a little bit.
yeah,
There are so many songs. If they tell a story, you can
yeah.
guarantee that I'll love them.
I mean, I don't, I think I must get it from my parents, but I'm into everything. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but I can
Yeah,
literally listen to something from 50 years ago or more that, yeah,
yeah,
and I'll be like, I can relate to that on some level. And then I can listen to a different genre and be the same
yeah.
because it's like you say, like at the end of the day, good music's good music, isn't it? And,
It is.
I mean, at the minute, there's a folk singer in the UK called Passenger who's,
Yeah,
he's quite big now and in the scene and whatever. And
yeah.
he was the one of the ones, as I say, and I said earlier, who sort of made me navigate down a different path of like folk and country music because of
Yeah.
that poetry that we were talking about. And I think as well, like when a lot of the radio stations are saturated with a certain type of genre, when you've
Hmm.
got access to, say, country music, and you can go, well, I've heard that pop song for 1,000 days in a row here. Let's hear something that tells a deep story that
Yeah,
then I can relate to that with my parents or
yeah,
with friends or whoever, because it just doesn't
yeah.
matter, does it?
And it makes you want to share it with people. And I think a
Yeah.
good song is more than just a song, it's almost an experience because I always
Mm,
know that I'm going to have a song on repeat if I hear it and I suddenly get the shivers and I
yeah.
feel, yeah, my whole body feels like it's tingling. Suddenly I realize, wow, this is the real deal. It's an
Yeah.
experience. It's kind of like everywhere. It's all around you. And
Yeah.
I love that. It's like you can visualize it without seeing a music video. You can
Yeah.
feel it, you can see it, you can hear it, and it's like, wow, it's
Yeah.
fully immersive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, you've given me way more than you should have done time-wise, but this possibly might be the best interview I've had for a long time. So
I'm
thank you for
so
that.
glad. No, thank you.
Thank you for that. I mean, it doesn't always flow as easily as this.
I'm so
Um,
glad. It means
But
so much
like,
to me.
really welcome. Like, you've got 83,000 followers on social media. How easy was it for you to get to that level? Did that
So
take years to build up that, or was that just a sudden 6 month rush of
it
people?
it kind of felt like it took forever, and then suddenly on Facebook alone there were I think 70,000 or like 68,000 right now, I think it is, and that just happened so fast. So initially it felt like it was just a small trickle and it would
Yeah,
be kind of consistent but pretty slow moving, and then I don't know what happened, whether I hit maybe an algorithm or maybe my music just began to get circulated more and just spoke to more people, then this sudden influx of followers just happened and it felt like it was overnight. And it hasn't been, it has been slightly longer, but that actually happened pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things. And Instagram would be kind of my second most engaged with platform. Facebook and Instagram are where I reach most of my dreamers,
mm.
new and OGs from, back in the day, as they say.
I don't
But yeah,
feel you're old enough to say back in the day, yeah.
one day when I'm 86, I'll look at this interview and I'll be like,
Absolutely.
what was she saying?
Exactly, yeah. What are the bucket list festivals in the UK, Europe, US that you want to play them someday? Or even a stadium if festivals are too difficult?
I would love to play C2C. I'm really hoping that that won't be something that's too far off in the future. I would absolutely love to play there. It's such an incredible festival, and I think it really is every year bringing more and more country music fans to the UK. So that is really special.
See,
Um,
I thought you would have said Cardiff's Millennium Stadium.
Oh, I would love to play there. Absolutely love. But there are so many. I mean, especially now, the country festivals that are popping up all over the place is insane. I'd love to play Buckle and Boots. I'm trying to think because there are so
Madison
many.
Square Garden one day?
That would be incredible. And I think there's also a festival. Is it called Black Deer
Yes,
Festival?
it is.
I'd
Yeah.
love to play that at Glastonbury, but there are ones that I'd love to play in the US. Like Coachella is one. Oh, there are so many, and they're all kind of swimming around in my brain. So I'm trying to make sure that I say the right names. But I think festivals now are such a huge part of music because
Yes.
everybody wants to go there. That is almost a fully immersive experience too. And I think people more and more now are looking for experiences rather than
Yeah.
material things. Experience something and to be able to take a memory away with them rather than be able to take away something physical.
Now, just to say then about the locations, and I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen the new venue in Las Vegas, the Sphere?
No, I
Oh
don't think
my
I have.
word! You should look it up after
I
this. It
will.
is epic. It
Oh
is
my God.
huge. I think you two have got a residency there, and
Yeah,
it is this giant, huge circle, and it's got LED lights all over the place, so they can turn it
it's
into
incredible.
anything you could possibly think of.
That's
It's,
another one
it's
to add.
I think it's the same people behind Madison Square Garden who built it
Oh
as
my
well. It
gosh.
looks insane.
That's incredible. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
check it out to see it.
Now, just teased us earlier with some new music potentially in the offing in the near future.
Yeah, oh, I'm so
Can you
excited.
give us any little more information or teasers on that?
I can. So I'm really excited. A lot of these songs that are going to be potentially a part of the next project are songs that have just been written. So some of them haven't been heard by anybody. Sometimes some of them people have heard like a little clip of acoustically, but I'm excited to be releasing new music that almost has a new sound and I think really shows who I am, or I hope it does.
Mm,
And I'm going to be going into the studio this November to record some stuff. And
awesome.
it's looking like February time could be the launch of maybe one of the first singles. So as long as
That's great
everything
because
goes
everyone
well,
needs to pick me up in February, don't they?
yeah, this is what I was saying. I don't know if everybody else feels the same, but I feel like January is such a sad month. It's such a sad month.
My
You'll never
birthday's in January. I hate it
know. Oh my gosh. Well, actually, having a
because nobody's
birthday in
got any
January
money.
probably makes
Yeah, the weather in the UK at least is terrible.
weather. That's the thing too. I think people always give off what the weather is giving off. So if it's really
Oh yeah,
dreary and wet and rainy,
yeah,
then everybody's just like, oh, I don't want to leave the house. I'm just going to end up wet,
yeah.
and it's sad and grey. But I think almost having a birthday, having something to look forward to in January is a good thing. It really picks you up a little bit. My mum's birthday's on Christmas Day, so we have like a double celebration on Christmas. And then
Oh,
after
that's
that,
nice.
yeah, and then after New Year's, I think, it's great you have the New Year's celebration, and then you'll never be as far away from Christmas as you are right now, and that just makes me sad.
See, I've completely forgot to ask you one of the key points of any interview with a musician. What is your songwriting process when it comes to writing songs? Have you got to go away in a room on your own to figure it all out, or do you get out your phone and do some voice notes and get back to it later?
I usually, if inspiration hits, or if inspiration knocks, then I answer the door straight away because otherwise the idea will be gone and I
Yeah.
will regret the fact that I didn't grab it when it was there. So wherever I am, I'll just pick up my guitar and I'll write the song right then and there. So I know some people schedule their writes, but for me, you never know what time of day or what
Yeah.
meeting or what experience is going to light this fire inside of you that says I need to write this song. So I usually just will write whenever I feel like is the right time. Sometimes I'll be out and I won't have my guitar with me, in which case I just will sing a melody and the lyrics into my phone and then I'll write it as soon as I get back.
Mhm.
But I've written songs in a room with people or in a room completely by myself. And probably the fastest, most efficient way to write a song is if you are there yourself. So you can
Mm.
just let all the ideas loose and the ones that stick are the good ones. But sometimes I'll be in a room with people and I know that if I don't get it down, I will forget. So I'll just be like, I am still listening. I'm also writing a song at the same time. I'm sorry.
Mm.
So
Where's the
sometimes I'm
weirdest place you've got had inspiration, like, or a lyric or something's come popped into your head? Have you just been in a weird environment or a slightly awkward environment to get out of, like, I don't know, family
yeah.
function or something like that? Oh, I've got to write that down. Hold on.
Yeah, I've definitely been at family functions or at like a party. I think I've been at the cinema, like at the movie theater, cinema, whatever, whoever's tuning in right now, far in the world, whatever you call it, the movie
That
theater.
place, yeah,
Yeah, that place. I've been there, and obviously that's a difficult place to write a song, but I'll just like my phone will be on the least bright setting I can put it on, and I'll be just typing in some lyrics, and then I'll go to the bathroom and I'll just sing it
yeah,
into
yeah.
my phone outside. But I've been like on public transport on a train and needed to write something down, so I'm singing into my phone, and people are like, "Is she okay? Is she
Yeah.
something?" I've been on a plane because I've done a lot of flying just over the last 2 years. So I've been on a plane and started writing a song at an airport a lot of times. So it can be really busy and bustling all around you, and you just have to switch it off so you can write a song.
Have you ever been anywhere where there's someone there that has inspired you to write a song, either then or when you got back to wherever you were going, where you didn't feel like you could record it or write it down in front of them, but you've gone, well, I'm going to use you as inspiration for this.
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the times that sticks in my mind the most is the proposal on the date that I didn't know was a date because
Oh,
I
I'm sorry for laughing at that. That's just
no,
awful.
it
But
is hilarious. It is funny, and I had to try not to laugh because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. But I was thinking, do I look like the kind of girl who is going to marry somebody on a first date that she didn't even know was a date, and also over chicken tenders and fries? What is happening? And he didn't have a ring. He asked me to remove the ring I was wearing. So instantly, I knew I'm going to write a song about this guy. And who am I kidding? It's probably going to be a couple albums. It's not going to be a song. This guy has given
yes.
me enough inspiration to just last a lifetime. But obviously, I couldn't whip my phone out and start recording right there in front of him because that would
Mm.
have probably created a bit of an awkward
Yeah.
atmosphere.
What's the best location that's ever inspired you to write something? Has it been like a picturesque sunset over a mountain range or
I think it might sound weird, but I actually think the city lights inspire me a
right?
lot. So I've also been in London and thought, wow, this is beautiful, and songs about that. I actually just wrote a new song called September Embers. And so I'm also quite inspired by the seasons, hence
Mm.
seasons change. And
Yes.
I've written a song called October and November and September Embers. So I think I'm inspired by like the months, the
Yes.
seasons, and the people that you meet during those times because you'll
Mm.
always attach their memory to the time and
To
place
that
that you
moment. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you've still got a load of live dates, I'm sure, and obligations to places to play and stuff. Where is on the agenda? Well, leading up to Christmas,
So I actually have a show on October 20th at Nash House in Nashville. So if anybody is
right?
in town or visiting, then I'd love to see you. Then I'll be heading to Florida for a writers retreat, and my first time being in Florida since 2017. And it's
Mhm.
also my very first writers retreat. So I'm excited for the new memories that are inevitably going to be made, but also just to think back about the incredible times I've had in Florida in the past. But I also have some other show dates in the works right now, some in the US, some in the UK. So I'm excited to announce those dates really soon and the locations within.
Are you coming to the south coast of UK at any point within the next year? Because that's where
I
I
would
live.
say, I would say yes, definitely.
Like for our foreign listeners who will see this, I live in a tiny little island on the south coast of England called the Isle of Wight. You may know it for the festival.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a couple of decent venues here if you ever, you're in this area, it's part of the world.
Definitely. I would love that. I would actually love to do more of an extensive tour of the UK because there's a lot of places that I haven't been, and it makes it difficult for some of my dreamers who are like hours away to be able
Mm,
to travel so far. And some of them will travel to show my shows via public transport, and that makes it difficult because if the show goes on late, they usually can't get back unless they
right.
stay overnight. And I think then suddenly their budget is blown out of the water because they like to travel and see live music, but it's difficult to do that often if you have to travel really far. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to visit more areas and cover more ground in the UK on
Yeah.
my next tour there. So hopefully, I mean, I think summer is always a really good time to tour. So maybe that'll be cool, and I'll be able to also do some festivals there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really good one in near Birmingham that I can recommend. little
Yeah.
independent one if you're ever in
That
the area.
would be
I went
incredible. Thank you.
I went to one last year that does a folk and country music over the weekend. It's
Yes.
called the Moseley Folk and Arts Festival.
Oh,
It's great.
wow.
It's near,
That
there's
is,
like it's literally 5 minutes from Birmingham city centre, but in
wow.
like a nice area of Birmingham. It's got like a park and there's a lake in the middle of it. Very nice. It's like a relatively small festival. We get a few thousand people like attend.
Yeah, but
It's definitely it should be something if ever the
yeah.
opportunity comes that you think about.
That would be incredible. I definitely that's definitely on my to-do list to be able to play. I mean, I do travel to England quite a lot to play shows and festivals, but just to be able to reach more people, cover more ground and go to people's more local areas for them so that they're not so far afield to get to me.
Well, hopefully very soon, all of us somewhere will be able to see you. Listen, I've taken up way too much more of your time than I ever intended to, so I'm sorry about that.
No,
I hope I've lived up to any expectations you may have had of me, Kate.
definitely. Even more so. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thank you for agreeing to do this, and please don't hesitate to get in touch if you ever want to come on again, all right?
Thank you so much. I would love that.
Please do. This might be the in my top 10 interviews I've done in the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. A huge, huge honor. Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. Listen, I wish you nothing but the best for the future. Keep in touch, and
I will.
we'll plug any additional details you need us to plug wherever we can, just to help you out. Not that you need it, but
So much help. Thank you.
this has been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I've had a blast. See you soon.
But
Bye.
see you soon. Bye bye.